Oh my gosh. All right, we're going to get started this morning. This is plugged into social media and Screentime mental health in our for our school or for our kids. The link to the slides is at the bottom, and it's also in the resources on the iTech website. I am Marisa Dahl, and I am one of the instructional technology consultants at Heartland AEA. This is my why. This is not always a popular topic, but it's one that I've definitely become very passionate about. To get up to how I started was around spring break. I was aimlessly finding down a rabbit hole on Instagram, and I found one of this lady that I follow shared a little bit about how this Colin had shared a little bit more about social media and what it's doing with our kids. And I was like, this guy's crazy. He's off his rocker. No, like I think technology is wonderful, and kids are using it for wonderful things. Like the more and more he shared, the more and more I got really upset, and I was like, why am I even following this guy? And the more and more I'm like, I'm getting upset because it's not fitting in what I've been told and what I've been taught and what I'm always seeing in our schools. And so I really like to see both sides. I want to be able to be educated on both sides of the conversation, and so I decided to stay with it. I decided to do a little bit more research. And so there are a couple books that I've read I mentioned it in this presentation, but really my why is because of my kids and the kids in our classroom and what social media is doing to these kids. So this session is a little bit to get you thinking about some of the decisions that we make as teachers, as we make as administrators, and even as parents. So how many of you have kids? So I figured that most of you have kids, and so this might come to you, you might be sitting here as a parent, or you might be coming in as an educator and going through that lens. But I'm not judging you. I also have kids. I'm not here to preach at you. I'm just here to give you the information that has been shown and to get you to think about some of the things that our kids are being exposed to. So this comes from Common Sense Media. Is how do we know, what do we know for sure? We know that how much our students use social media, it does affect them. We know that how they're using it matters. We know that the tools that we have in our classroom and how they're using that matters on how we need to be teaching them some good strategies on how to use it. And then also the other ones might matter. But what I really want to say is the myth or truth. Parents spend less time on devices than kids and teens. Is that a myth or is that? That is a myth. So parents are spending over 9 hours a day on social media, on screens. So yes, that does include the time that they spend at work on screens, and so we know that we are models, just like they keynote this morning. You know, we are modeling how we react to things when things don't go well, and so we are modeling for our kids those behaviors and those things that we're doing when we're on our screens. This is one of the school districts that I work in, right here in the Des Moines area. This is a 5th grade classroom. I walked in one of the days to do a seesaw lesson, and this is the data that I found up on the board. While this shocked me, because this is a 5th grade classroom, it only got worse when I saw how much of them were on Snapchat. But then the hardest thing for me to get to understand was my parents have rules for my phone. 8 kids out of that classroom, their parents have no rules on their phones. And that's what really made me think, oh, I have a job to do. Like, these are my kids. These are the kids that my daughter goes to this school. These are the kids that I need to talk to, and I want to talk to their parents. And I hope that I'm getting to, since most of you are parents, hopefully my message is getting to those people, those kids, those teachers, those parents that need to know that there needs to be some sort of rules or guidelines on it for our students' phone use. This is a clip part of it. So the AT&T did a contest where kids can submit little snapshots of videos of their cyberbullying or their experience with social media, or their experience with other teens, and it's called There's a Soul Behind the Screen. It's a 20-minute video, but this one has just a few snippets that we're going to watch. And some of these things are hard to hear that some of our kids are dealing with in our classrooms.
And this girl was posting anonymous comments on my picture saying how I was ugly and fat, and she would send me texts about how she saw me in the hallway and I didn't look good that day, or something about my appearance, and she always had a nasty comment to say.
I always get body shamed for being thick or being too big. So easy to send a photo of yourself, even though you might trust somebody, but end up not being a trustworthy person. Even if it's behind your back, it's still cyberbullying. It's hurtful.
One time I posted a picture and I got it was oh, you're totally gay, that's so gay. And it was okay. And then they kept commenting.
I was FaceTiming her and maybe something that I shouldn't have been. And she introduced screenshotted me and sent it to a bunch of people at my school.
I felt hurt at first because when somebody's saying a bunch of mean things to you, it kind of gets you, even though you're taught not to worry about everybody else's opinion.
I started questioning whether or not I should even keep my social media accounts because all of this negativity is just held within it.
Last year I didn't go to school because of a person saying things online.
I didn't even want to go outside. I didn't want to spend time with my friends because I thought I was fat so yeah.
So it makes you think about, even from the keynote this morning, what are the kids in our classrooms, how do they perceive themselves, or how are they being perceived by others in the buildings? These kids are just like kids in our classrooms. And when we think about building those relationships with those kids, have we talked to students? Are they open? Do they feel open enough to share these things with us? And do we know how to react and how to support these kids who are maybe feeling this way? How much time do you spend on social media a day? I think most of us are over the age of 28, so that's when the frontal cortex fully develops. So we know that I spend time on social media as well, but I am also an adult, and I know that anything I post on social media could be used out of context, could be shared. It's pretty much like going on from front page of the Joint Register. But I know that, and I also know how to handle that. I know how to handle the emotions. I know how to deal with that. What were they saying? The compare. The CSI, I know that. I know all those photos are staged. I know those photos are photoshopped because I'm over the age of 28. Most kids in our classrooms, our kids are not over the age of 28. They don't know how to decipher those things. They think that is real life. And they're comparing their real life to other friends' screen life. How about how much time is spent on Fortnite? When we think of the summer, I know 2 kids in my block who spent most of their time on Fortnite all summer. And I knew that they had to then walk into our classrooms, and I don't know how many engaging lessons those teachers could plan, how excited they were. How many of them can really beat the stimulus that they were getting from Fortnite when they sit in our classrooms with a computer? That was a little frightening. I know that I've kind of heard that Fortnite is kind of going down right now, which is nice, but there'll be another game that sparks up or has already sparked up. But how do we, but I also know there's parents, or there's people out there, or there's parents out there who sit and play Fortnite with their kids. You know what, that's their bonding time. And so I'm not saying that Fortnite is bad, but I also know that there's a lot of kids sitting at home playing Fortnite by themselves, and probably talking to people that they would never get a chance to talk to. Do you have a streak going? Do you know what a streak is? Some nods. How about have you ever created a Finsta? Do you know what a Finsta is? So when we think about our kids and their streaks and their Finstas, streaks are in Snapchat. If you have a streak, that means you send a picture of yourself or of something to that person every single day. There are kids who, when they went to camp last summer, gave their friends their Snapchat account so that they could continue the streak. They didn't want to break those streaks. There's other girls saying that, you know what, so-and-so broke our streak, so I'm not friends with her anymore. This is the things that our kids are dealing with. And it kind of freaks me out a little bit. Finstas. And I'm going to show a video in a minute. Finsta is a fake Instagram account. And what happens is mom and dad, they follow their parents online, but then all of a sudden, you know, a kid wants to start posting some other stuff and doesn't want mom and dad to see it, so they create a fake Instagram account. And that's the one that they share more things that mom and dad shouldn't see. So they have lots of accounts. There's actually a video of a kid who has 4 Finstas. And how he decides what he's going to share on each one of those. I'll show you in a minute how to find out whether your students or your kids have a Finsta. So the Snapchat, that's a little more the Snapchat streaks. Back in the day, how many of you played these MASH or Cutie catchers? How many of you probably still have those MASH papers bundled up in a little cardboard box at your parents' house? Maybe just me. Who would never want anybody to see their MASH piece of paper? How many of you would want someone to snap a picture of that and post it on social media? That didn't happen. You know, those MASH things, those cootie catchers, those things we shared between best friends, we did not post them on social media. And so that is why we did those kind of crazy things and parents and teachers thought we were crazy when we did it then. But what's different now is that those things are being shared on social media 24 hours a day. Whereas those things that we did usually sitting in class and then we threw it in a garbage or we threw it in a box, those things now are being shared and kids can't get away from it. It's constantly, those things are constantly bombarding them, even though they're not at school. This video, I'm going to watch just the first minute of it. It's a kind of an eye-opener about where we think our kids, probably actually, let me take that back. This is what a lot of halls that I walk into, I have an eye for people on phones now, but a lot of the classrooms, or a lot of the hallways that I walk into, unfortunately, look like this.
The tycoons of social media have to stop pretending that they're friendly nerd gods building a better world and admit they're just tobacco farmers in t-shirts, selling an addictive product to children. Because let's face it, checking your likes is the new smoking. Philip Morris just wanted your lungs. The App Store wants your soul.
There are 2 billion people, more than 2 billion people on Facebook. That's more than it's about the number of notional followers of Christianity. People check their phones 150 times a day, the millennial sort of audience. And so if you think about it, from the moment you wake up, it's like you're jacked in to this environment. And thoughts start streaming into your head, designed by a few technology companies.
What we find is the typical person checks their phone every 15 minutes or less. And half of the time they check their phone, there's no alert, no notification. It's coming from inside their head telling them, gee, I haven't checked in Facebook in a while. I haven't checked on this Twitter feed for a while. I wonder if somebody commented on my Instagram post. That then generates cortisol and it starts to make you anxious. And eventually your goal is to get rid of that anxiety, so you check in.
And apparently we feel stressed when we can't get on our phone or when our battery is about to die. You probably know this feeling. And a research done in Australia among 3,000 people under the age of 30 found that 9 out of every 10 admit to feel this anxiety while having this battery.
So now we know that anxiety for is affecting in their classroom, and we know that even when we teach lessons, that anxiety that their phone is in their locker or their phone is sitting in their backpack, that anxiety is still there. And we need to decide how we're going to navigate that conversation and also help them to realize how much time that they're spending on their phones. The side effects of social media and and their smartphones is staggering. And you'll see there's all sorts of reports out. This is just a few of the headlines that I found. This study was done in 2008, and the main things that I want to point out of this, and I know it's a lot of words, I don't like to put a whole lot of words on screens, but the main thing I want to point out is that 39% of between 13 and 19-year-olds are sending or posting sexually provocative images or messages. How many of you work with kids between 13 and 19? Can you believe that 39% of them have sent something that's inappropriate? 22% of the females, 11% of them were 13 to 19. So those females, how many of us are working with 13-year-olds? 13 to 19-year-old females. How many of them are sending inappropriate pictures? These are the youth suicide rates. I noticed in 2011, that's when Snapchat and Instagram came out, how much that increased. But when I give these speeches and I talk a little bit, I guarantee you this is not a topic I sit around with my friends and we drink wine and we talk about. But there are times when people will comment when I say something, or when I do get into those social environments. And one of the women I was talking to said, my kids won't have any friends if they don't have access to social media. Give them a phone, they said. Says, that you are so fat but you will seriously have no friends. Just do the world a favor and kill yourself. That was a message sent to a 13-year-old girl. Another one. This one just came out this month, or no, September. All of these men were arrested for using Fortnite to talk to boys and girls and go out and try to meet them. And the last one, this one came out in September as well, September 25th, child predators shadowing kids on Fortnite as well. So we know that our kids are playing Fortnite, we know our kids are on social media, but do we know who they're talking to? But this doesn't happen in Iowa, you might be thinking. Here's another message. Warning from a 13-year-old girl. I'm 13 years old and I've had a Snapchat since I was 9. At first I thought it was so cool, but now I'm realizing it's horrible. No kid or adult should use it. I live in a small town in Iowa, and when I was in 4th grade, one of my friends came in contact with a boy who claimed to be 14 at the time. Apparently I had a huge crush on her. Her mom took her phone one day and saw all the snaps of him. He ended up being a 40-year-old man. She then pleads, never let your kids have social media. They will face so much drama and hardship because of it, and they'll be so much happier without it. Things like this make me think our kids are going to save us. Our kids are going to be the ones that show us that this is not okay for their age. How do you check your Explore page? I've had a lot of parents say, hey, yeah, my kids are on social media. Yes, they have so many friends because of social media. Well, have you checked that Explore page? On both Snapchat and, this is actually on mine, I will admit, on Snapchat and on Instagram, if you go to this button that has 2 cards, these are the things that come up. Granted, my Snapchat knows that I am a female. I'm also between the ages of 20 and 40, I think is what they know that. They know what's going to get me to click on. It's totally different if you put in that you are a 16 to 20-year-old male. Because I've tested it out. Same thing over here. I follow a lot of fitness, a lot of teachers, and so that's what's going to come up. But when I go to this magnifying glass and I am a young male, many different things come up. It'd be interesting if you would check that out, and if you sit with your kids or sit with your students and have them show you what is on there. I'm not going to tell you what I've seen because I don't know what's on there because I haven't seen that student's per thing, but there's not always very, very appropriate things. Things that for back in our day we would have to pay for, but now they can get it free access to all of these inappropriate things with signing up to Instagram and Snapchat. Kids who grew up without social media miss out on nothing. This is from one of the books I read. Nope, I take that back. This is from the website. When I think about that parent that parents said, my kids aren't going to have any friends because they don't have social media. There are friends, there are people out there. And the more I talk to parents about that, there are kids that say, no, if you don't have Snapchat, you don't have Instagram, they're not going to be your friend. Well, do we want our kids to have those friends? Do we want them to have the more of the face-to-face connections and those real, deeper connections, coming over on a Friday night, meeting at the park, meeting somewhere, and not just having that conversation over screens, but really having those deep, meaningful conversations like this teen said. They want to gain a deeper relationship with friends and loved ones and they're never cyberbullied. If they're never on social media, they never have had to feel that comparison, that need to be compared to everything else and compare themselves. This is something that was just shared last week on the Today Show. They had met with these boys and also a group of girls about their social media use and how love and finding love is much different these days. This caught my eye, first of all, when they showed me the topic, but what was the most shocking is what one of those boys says at the end of this interview.
You know, since like the dawn of man, kids struggling with things like heartbreak might say something like, you don't understand me, Mom and Dad. And the parents are like, yeah, we do. We were young too. But that was before social media came in and turned everything we know about dating upside down.
Getting guys to open up about love can sometimes be a little tough. Getting them to talk about digital dating can leave your head spinning. How complicated is love these days?
Oh, it's so dumb.
Okay, well, what he goes on to say is how everything is scrutinized, and everything that girls post online, how these boys know that every single post that these girls are posting online, they have to make sure that they look the best, the background is perfect. There is nothing unflattering about that, and these boys know that when these girls...
So much to it, like you gotta wait 3 minutes before you can open a Snapchat, or like don't like his Instagram post too soon. It's also a lot of like pressure to create this perfect image.
We also talked to a group of girls who admit they stress over every detail posted on social media, and yeah, the guys are aware.
You know, you post something with another girl and they get a little jealous, or they start tracking you through Snapchat maps, and it can get really complicated.
They're talking about a Snapchat feature regularly used by teens. It shows them where their friends are and often who's hanging out without them. In fact, so much of their love life is around that tiny screen.
When you're creating like a Tinder profile, it's almost like you're creating like your brand. People see you and they're like, how to vibe with you.
Hold on, did he just say Tinder?
We do gravitate towards Tinder. You can say you're a teen, like there's no fact check or anything. So you're just putting yourself out there and swiping or whatever.
And it's not just Tinder.
I feel like I'm gonna start talking when this all of a sudden gonna work. We're just gonna cut out of that. So the biggest thing about that one is when the kids start talking about how Tinder has changed and all you have to do is swipe and all you have to do is, you know, if one day they go on a date with a girl, they don't like her, they just get home and they just go find the next person. And so how that's changed. And what the biggest thing at the end and they talk about is how they are scared because a lot of their first grade, either their, I don't know if it's their brothers and sisters or their friends' brothers and sisters at first grade, they're no longer having those crushes on the playground. They are already having those crushes on the screen. And how they are scared about that. And they are saying they want to get rid of their social media, these kids. They said that they'd be better off without it. They said one of the commentator guys, that's not what his name is, the guy who's interviewing them says, you know, have you guys thought about what it was like for us when we never had that? And they said, we want that. They would rather go back to how we had it with no social media than to have it. And so I figured that's pretty telling about this group of guys, that they would rather have no social media. So when we think about we are giving our youngest kids the most addictive drug when they sign up for social media. Because every like and every comment is that adrenaline, is that the pulse of, some of them say it's like the pulse of, it's like giving them drugs. And every time that they post a picture, if they don't get enough likes in a few minutes, they take it down. We know that our kids always want to feel a sense of belonging. And so they're no longer, one of the books I read called It's Complicated, says, you know, kids are not allowed to go to the mall anymore. They can't be in groups of people. They can't because there's like rules at malls and everything. You can't do that. Parents don't want them to go to the park. They don't want them to leave the house because it's safer at home than it is for them to go outside. So then what they do is they find things like Fortnite so they can belong to something. And so we need to figure out what are our opportunities in our buildings, in our communities, in our classrooms as students who feel that sense of belonging, they may be not going to things like Fortnite. Kids will learn how to drive, but we don't give them cars. I know a lot of friends who are like, oh, but they're going to have social media someday, so I'm just going to, we might as well start now. They're going to have to learn it somehow. Or I'm going to give them a computer now because they're going to have to learn how to use computers. But we wouldn't give them computers, or we wouldn't have them driving in kindergarten, nor would we be giving them credit cards in kindergarten. And so when we think about, if we wouldn't give a kindergartner or a ninth, a friend of mine said, yep, when they turn 10, I give them a phone. And I said, well, do they have a credit card? Well, no, they don't know how to manage money. Well, I feel like, okay, well, if you're telling them a 10-year-old can't manage money, but yet we're giving them a phone that has much more lasting effects of the things that they're going to be viewing and seeing, you can't unsee some of these things that these kids are seeing at this young age. You do the best you can until you know better, and then when you know better, you do better. Do my kids have, they do have social media, they're not old enough, but my kids have, one of them has an iPad, the other one does have a little tiny iTouch. And so, the more I learn about this, the more I'm like, those are privileges. And I've decided to think about how am I going to let them know that is a privilege, and that's not something they can go on to. Back in, I had a colleague that's like, oh yeah, I took away YouTube, and I was like, you are crazy. How do you get anything done? How do you get the dishes done? How do you, my husband works at night, so yeah, some of those things I'm like, I had to give him YouTube because I had to get the dinner stuff. I had to get dishes done, or I had to make dinner, but now I don't. And I figured out if I'm always giving them something to occupy them, then they've never learned how to do it themselves. They never know how to be bored. And so we do. We have 2 months out of the year. Past July, we took away all screens. And we found out how much for that first inkling when they're bored is to jump on their computer. So in February and in July, we take away screens. And I still can't believe the creativity that I see, the imagination, and how it was almost like I was giving them those devices so that I could have my free time, but yet I was never letting them have their own free time because they were automatically just going to the YouTube and never really trying to figure out, what do I do when I'm bored? Kids need to be seen, heard, and loved more than ever. Colin talks a lot about, this Colin Carter, this guy I follow on Instagram, he talks a lot about that 8-second hug. And a colleague of mine, I gave this to our all staff at Heartland a couple of weeks ago, and just last week, one of the colleagues that I highly respect came up and said to me, I have 2 kids at home, and they look forward to that 8-second hug. And I was like, yes, this is why I do it. Our kids need those hugs, that physical touch. Because right now, the likes and the comments are the only things giving them those endorphins. And we need to make sure that there's somebody in our buildings and somebody at home, somebody giving them, those kids, other ways of feeling good and those 8-second hugs. All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it's ridicule. Very much so. This is not a popular conversation. Like I said, it has definitely been ridiculed, but we need to think about what is something that you want to take from this conversation and you want to take back to our buildings, to our parents, to our classrooms, to our homes, and think about, while some of this stuff might be like, you know, we might not know how to exactly connect with a lot of these things because it's not something that we deal with, but how can we connect with our kids and figure out what to do with this information? A couple of the things that I've been able to take away from this is one of the books I read. I would say there was like 2 chapters that are a little George Jetson to me, and I will admit that it was like kind of crazy, you're on and off your rocker. But the books I share is this one's on the very far end, way over here. I can't say I agree with everything, but it was something that I definitely wanted to understand more. But kids need nature, they need physical touch, several hours of unstructured play, conversation with adults, and creative outlets. So when we think about what are our devices doing? If our devices are taking away these opportunities, are we using the devices to the best to our ability? Another one I've read is Glow Kids. Let kids be kids. One of the let them play, explore, create, use their imagination, allow them the opportunity to be bored. This is probably, out of all the books that I read, this is probably the greatest eye-opener. And I have 2 buildings who are doing book studies on this. I would say there's a couple chapters that I'm like, holy crap, like I can't believe a bunch of people are gonna read this. But I would say for the most part, it's a very, very enlightening book and really helps us understand what our screens and social media and video games are doing to our youngest kids' brains. We need, there's my 8-second hug slide. But we need more of this, and this, and this. When we think about those, I've been in a lot of classrooms and those reward charts that some of our teachers are putting together. You know, the kid does 5 things and then he gets 10 minutes of Chromebook time. We are feeding into that high anxiety. We are feeding into it. When we take that Chromebook away, what's going to happen to that kid? He's going to freak out. So we need to think about, are we feeding that addictive behavior, or are we trying to give him other strategies to de-escalate and how to not give into that anxiety, not give into that heightened awareness. We need those things. But then also, what policies do we have in place in our schools? This is just one of the ideas I found. I really liked it because it was out of sight, out of mind. It was in the back of the classroom. The kids put their phone in there, turned it on vibrate, but then she also had it charging. And so they wrote their name on the pocket of their phone, but also screen-free zone. Think about those places, and this is not something that maybe be popular in my kind of work because I'm an instructional technology consultant. But as I was working with one of my kids in schools, we were talking about we're building a new school. And so we were thinking about some of our learners need that time away from screens. And if I'm sitting at the library at one of the tables and there's a guy plugging away, or there's another one looking at all of his Instagram feed, and I'm trying to sit there and read, that kid has been those are triggers, and those are anxiety coming from every angle. And so is there a place in our schools that kids can go and they don't have to be bombarded by screens, and they know that they can go there and they're not going to hear a business. They're not going to be, what's he looking at? What's he looking at? What am I missing out on? Are there places in our schools that our kids can just unplug? When we think about the standard model, which we talked about yesterday, this is kind of out of nowhere. But when think about my position, and what I do is I work with kids, I work with teachers and students to use and implement technology effectively. When I see teachers using it for the technology for substitution, it's like, is it worth it? Is that screen time really, really worth it? If we are only substituting. Because back at the time, I was totally like, yes, as some teachers are going to be substituting. But in one of the Glow books, in my Glow Kids book, it said, there's a quote from Michael Colin saying, it's not whether technology is used or not which makes the difference, but it's how well the technology is used to support teaching and learning. So we know that if they're just using it for substitution, that is not increasing their learning. And so maybe we should just put the screens away. But if you are truly redefining that child's experience, we talked a lot about inspiring and experiences. If that technology is inspiring them, if it's transforming their learning, then absolutely take those Chromebooks out, take those devices out. But if it's not, let's put them away. and truly, truly get back to some of those creativity things and those unplugged activities. Why? Back to my why again. All of you guys are leaders in the educational world. You wouldn't be here if you didn't truly believe that technology is important. We need to make sure that we are getting to those we are redefining our kids' experiences and their learning with technology. And even though some of our kids are going to have social media and they're going to feel that anxiety, they're going to feel those things, we are the leaders and we are in charge of those kids. We need to make sure that our classrooms and our hallways are places that they are feeling loved, seen, and heard. These are some of the people you can follow. Common Sense Media just put out a wonderful third through fifth is done. Third through sixth I think is just released. They have a really great curriculum. If you haven't looked at it before, check it out again. 6 through 12 will be released at the end of this year, and then K through third grade will be released next fall. They have some wonderful, there's a whole digital wellness curriculum actually built in where students can figure out, how does social media make me feel? How does it make me feel when I'm, and so those are there's questions, there's things for parents, there's things for teachers, there's great slides, there's wonderful, fabulous movies that they have just put out. I just looked at them this month, and I was really shocked at how much that they've really revamped their stuff. Start the conversation. When we walk out of here today, start those conversations with our parents and our kids and our PTOs and our health teachers, our counselors. Educate yourself, your staff, your families, and your students. There's also some digital resources to help maybe take back some of that control of your screen time. Think about how much you're using it, how it's making you feel. Taking that Calm app kind of shows up on your screen and tells you to breathe, and then it goes through some breathing exercises. There's a couple of videos, a couple of informational things, articles that I've read, and I quote in here. The Self-Esteem, Gratification, and Addiction by Simon Sinek. Some of you might like him, some of you might not. Fabulous movie, but I know a lot of people don't really like him, and so I wasn't going to show that video. But if you like him, or if you don't like him, that is a great video on how screen time is affecting our kids with the gratification and addiction. So that is all I have. So thank you very much.